Hey everyone. So, yeah, a little bit of an explanation here as to why this one's a day late than usual is because I don't know what happened exactly, but it's one of those things where where the pretty much raw episode of where the raw version of the episode was released, but but the subbed episode which was supposed to be released like the next day when it was supposed to be released, there was a bit of a delay for that. So yeah, it's like it only got released, I guess, like a day, like like today or something like that, or last night or something. I don't know. Like it was weird. So I just decided I'm just gonna do it today anyway. But with that said, this episode pretty much sees the conclusion of the fight between Yo and Yoken, and even though it is a little cliche, one thing I really liked about how Yo overcame Yoken ultimately is through sharing his is kind of just sharing their life experiences and understanding that all and Yo understanding that all he needed was basically someone to fight again. He had spent like so much of his time fighting to stop Hal that by the time he killed him, he felt he had lost himself. Just the idea that he killed one of his own, but thanks to Yo achieving his new oversoul and growing stronger, for a brief moment, Yoken was able to regain his sense of self and just find new purpose in fighting Yo again. And just by and following that, just by being able to sit down and talk with Yo afterwards, that allowed Yoken, I think, to find some semblance of peace of mind he never really had in life. Like I think that's the one thing to take away from much from Yo's encounter with Yoken is that Yoken had lived a life just not knowing any sense of inner peace or anything like that. Like for as weird as it is, he spent so much time fighting Hal that he never really got to experience something like that. And and I like how, and in Yo's case, the through though you can see how this fight, you can also see how this fight in itself has helped him gain somewhat of a new perspective and clarity to the point where it doesn't feel like he's fumbling around in the dark, like desperate to find answers anymore. Like I think the fight with Yoken more than anything else for Yo, it's allowed him to feel like he's back to being more emotionally grounded. On top of still being emotionally and physically stronger, which yeah, we do need to talk about the whole power purification thing that Yoken talks about in this episode, because while the actual logistics of how the climax and the fight is going to go down and how the fight itself comes together, it is how the fight comes together is a little more in depth. The episode basically gave us our answer as to what is going to defeat Hal. Like the whole we base like Yo has an actual power of purification that is what is ultimately going to defeat Hal. Like you can kind of pretty much instantly tell what's gonna happen from here. Which getting I guess we're getting into the sort of logistics of how this climax is starting to form now. We learn the details of how what we see in the opening with Yo and the others obtaining the five elemental spirits is likely to go down, and specifically how they're basically going to wrench the spirit. How Yo and the others are basically going to wrench the spirit of fire from Hal's control. Which, yeah, and building upon that idea more and more, that Hal truly does have to obtain the power of Great Spirit in order to be defeated. Which, yeah, when you look at the whole situation, it is such an ironic cascading chain of events that are ultimately needed to finally defeat Hal. Yet at the same time, it's the way we're kind of well presented with this information of how they can defeat Hal. It is presented in a way that weirdly does make sense, especially when you stop and consider the part about Hal needing to enter that sort of like pretty much faux death sleep state in order to merge with the Great Spirit, and how he's forced to relinquish his worldly controls. Like just from hearing that, we weirdly we have seen that happen already. So it makes sense that the same rules would apply, but to a greater extent with a Great Spirit. And not to sound like a broken record, but little details like this do answer a lot of contextual questions that again would have been nice to have in the original anime, even if the climaxes are going to be vastly different from each other. Which, yeah, I guess knowing that we get introduced to a neutral member of the patch, whose name is I think it was I think it was not Namari, who basically warns Sati that she's overstepping her boundaries of what's acceptable for the patch. And Namari even goes on to say, even goes on to talk about the real strength of the patch tribe, which is ominous enough, but it also kind of tells us just what we've gotten up to this point has only been like a taste of the patch tribe's involvement in the story. And it's something I took for granted reading the manga, but I do like how the patch have a much more of an active role in things, and it feels more like it feels like the stakes are more built up, that they're definitely more intense and need more. The stakes are definitely warranted a lot more with knowing that the patch are going to get involved now at this point. And yeah, from here we see the others are now in the process of undergoing their own trials, like Yo, which right out of the gate it is beyond ironic that Team Moon's attempts to prevent Lysark from becoming one of the 5 warriors, they ultimately helped speed up the process. Now with that said, if I'm being a little bit critical of this part, I wish the anime kind of transitioned better into Ren, Horohoro, and Chocolov being sent to hell, because we just kind of cut to them being there. I mean, I get why that was done, because we had already seen it being done to Yo, so it's not like we need to see Ren and the others getting killed, and we do get a much more but I don't know. At the time I was reading the manga, it felt a little like self-censorship or something. But again, I do understand the reason why, and we do get a good. And Chaco feels like Chaco himself basically feels like he's going to be getting like the biggest thing, like the most development from here, like being sent to the furthest depths of hell. Yeah, that's gonna do something to a guy. The biggest takeaway though from this episode is it's kind of a meme at this point, but to say it, but we're kind of in the end game now. This episode adapted a lot of the manga, like pretty much up to the early to mid 240s, if we're talking chapter numbers, and that only leaves around like 50 chapters left to adapt. So honestly, at the rate this adaptation is going right now, we could almost afford to slow down a little bit. But yeah, the episode ends with Marco back on his feet, and man, was that the most epic way you could have ended the episode. Like, whatever qualms I had with the guy, Marco has had way more epic moments in the reboot than he's ever had before, and just pretty much seeing him being brutally tortured by how arriving and being brutally tortured and all that. It's like, man, I genuinely feel bad for Marco. Like, he's genuinely putting his life on the line in order to make sure Lysark and Jean survive. Like, it's good stuff. It's good stuff that makes you say this version of Marco is the better version, honestly. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.